Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
who can I borrow a pen from this week? Mr. Unprepared.
They told me,
Oh, I got one.
Guilford
Thank you very
Storage
much.
today that those guys.
Okay, so, is everyone ready to proceed?
Buildings up here. And the storage facility.
Charlie, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're gonna call this meeting of the Laconia Planning Board to order at 6:33 PM. My name's Peter Burnett, I'm the chair. Could we start with the call of the roll, Ms. Graham?
Yeah, Kirk Fiotti,
Here.
Charlie St. Clair,
Here.
Rich McNeil,
Here.
Louis Joseph,
Here.
Mike Delavecchia,
Here.
Scott McWilliam,
Here.
Stacy Susie. Here. Brett Bellevue.
Here.
Here. Thank you very much. The recording secretary is Kalina Graham. We also have the planning director, Dean Trefethan, here with us this evening. Have you all had an opportunity to review the minutes from the August meeting? Are there any suggestions for changes or additions there too? Sensing none, declare the minutes accepted. We have no presentations this evening. We do have some extension requests, starting with 7.1, which is Woodvale Drive. It's a request to extend the approval of the garage construction within a wetland buffer. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Oh, come on up, sir. If you'd be so kind as to stand there and give us your name and your address, and you may proceed.
My name's Brian Iskey. I'm 39 Summit Avenue, Laconia.
Okay, and are you the owner of the Woodvale Drive property or a representative?
I'm a partner,
Okay,
yes.
all right, so what's the reason for the request?
The request, the reason is for, the original plan was to build a metal Morton building, and unfortunately, due to the construction dilemma that we're all in, they extended out the dates on which we could get a building, and also the pricing has gone up over 50%, and the extension was for 2 years. So what we've done is we've actually moved to another system that you're using currently, Nudura, which is an ICF system. You guys familiar with, you've probably seen the insulated concrete forms.
Right,
That way we've got local, first of all, it gave us a lot more in the contractor pool to pick from and get bids from.
Right.
Get proper quoting, so, and in fact, the condos right by the Cumberland Farms, by the Weirs, are also using the exact same system that we chose to use, so. We've contacted that company, we bought the trusses already for the building and brought them onto site. So we're
you're on
trying
the
to start.
verge.
Yeah, we're working on getting the components together, and the site work's pretty much complete. We have to do a little bit and dig down for the frost wall, but then the concrete's
So
readily available.
what would your completion date be?
Well, whether or not we can get.
Requesting 1 year extension.
We are, because by the time we can get it under construction, we think the fall might be a bit of a challenge. So our thought process is now is spring, just because of the concrete shortage we're having right now. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it just seems like everybody there's shortages of ready mix, there's shortages of pretty much everything currently.
You're talking to somebody who decided apparently 2 years too late to switch from oil to gas. And the contractor said it would have been probably 2/3 less expensive prior to the pandemic, so.
Right.
Well, I understand that. So what would the extension date actually be?
October 3rd of 2023.
October 3rd of 2023. Should give you plenty of time to do.
Yes, it should.
All right. Any members of the board have any questions? Yes.
A couple questions.
Sure.
On the July 10th, you guys had a load of wood trusses delivered. Those trusses came, I'm assuming they were stored somewhere. So they've been engineered for a building of that size.
For that building.
Okay.
Those trusses came for the building that we're proposing to build, absolutely.
And the building height will stay the same then,
Nothing changes.
proposed?
Yep.
So 26.6 to the peak, 17.6 to the soffit?
Yeah, I have a diagram. excuse me here, of the trusses. I can provide you. I didn't bring copies, but I have them. May I approach?
Certainly. You don't even have to genuflect.
I don't know.
Well, not tonight. This isn't city council, Bruce.
I got a couple more questions. So,
Certainly.
this past weekend, everything got moved out of there, all the personal vehicles?
Not all the personal vehicles.
there's one left.
I have a truck
There's a pickup
that
truck
belongs to
with the
me.
hood up. Yeah,
Well, the hood's not up, but
well, it was up.
it was, yeah, I had a battery
Charger
issue.
on it. My question is, we talked about this when when your partner was here before, about this was personal use.
Yes?
So, can I ask why Glenn Robertson's van has been parked in there for last year?
Glenn Robinson, is a friend of ours.
Okay.
There's been no charge for any of this type of thing. Every once in a while, we get a question from one of the neighbors, can I put something on your lot for a while, a boat trailer for the summer or something like that, and we've done that. And we've tried to limit it, but, you let one neighbor do it, and then everybody else unfortunately feels like we're obligated to them to let them do it. But we've told everybody, we want, and I have photos of it. Have you seen the property lately?
I walk by it every day.
Okay. Well, you know that we did put up a fence to help,
Do you show the jet skis and everything down the street that are in the side of the road for sale?
yeah, 2 of them are gone, 2 of them are still there. They're Richie's, they're not mine. But yeah, I have a picture of those 2.
Yeah.
So,
The frustration is,
and the for
my
sale sign.
opinion is, it's a commercial use lot. It's full of stuff, it's in and out all the time. It's a residential neighborhood.
It is, it's not for commercial use. We have never charged, never used it for commerce, never charged anybody any money ever to use it there. It's strictly been, Mr. Holmes has a lot of things, and unfortunately, I have a few things. The intention is still to build a building, to get everything put away. We've tried to do things to beautify the property and, put landscaping. I can pass these pictures around. To just make it more acceptable to the neighborhood. I don't think I have enough for
Well,
everybody.
the acceptable part,
Sorry, you
in
can
10
pass
minutes
it.
of 8 on a Sunday morning when the wood trusses get delivered, it's pretty obnoxious to the backup alarm.
Should live
We
Monday
had to
night.
pick a time, unfortunately, we had to pick a time, that was the contractor who was moving the trusses for us. He picked the time, not us.
So when the building's complete, anything that will be stored in the building will be yours or Mr. Holmesy's.
Absolutely correct.
I believe the approval did not allow for outside storage,
That is
right?
correct, yep.
So, I mean, it would be, one could say that you're already subject to that restriction, and you're the one that's asking us to extend the conditions of your approvals remain, even if you haven't completed reached your completion date yet.
So that means they shouldn't have anything
They
that
shouldn't
doesn't
have
belong
any
in-
outdoor storage on the site if that was a condition of approval. I don't have this COA right in front of
I
me,
don't bel-
but
I
I'm
don't-
sure you'll look it up and take care of that situation.
We do have 4 storage trailers that we moved onto the property to try to put things in and get things away. And we painted them green just again to make it look, until we can get things done. We've got some of the components that are in those storage trailers were purchased for, the property, like the furnace and a few other things are in storage in the buildings now.
And then the hoop house got moved over due to the green storage.
Oh,
unit got
yes,
moved
yes.
over When the issue with Governor's Island, so they got moved
Again,
over.
that's not my issue, unfortunately.
No, but that's-
Fortunately, I should say.
That's another storage
But
thing on
it,
the
but it
lot.
also gets things out and not, so they're not out in the less visibility. But we do have wood storage and things that, we've cut down the wood. We saved the wood from the property. You can see it here.
Do you have these for the file, Kalina? These pictures? Pass them down to her. We have multiple copies of 2 pictures here.
Pass those around. This is the storage of the wood. It's all packed on pallets, covered up, plastic, everything, to try to keep it neat, keep it stored properly. And we do use the firewood for heating, which is very nice, as you know, right now, supplemental heat. And, you know, just for our outdoor fireplaces and things too.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr.
First, I'd like to apologize for being late. I'm at a bit of a loss for, he's under the obligation to not have outside storage. And even a casual observer might notice there's quite a bit of stuff stored outside.
That is true. That might.
That picture
That
is
was
not a
the-
true representation of what it has been all summer.
It has been worse. I'm not gonna
Much
deny
worse.
that.
It got cleaned up Saturday.
I mean, I see 2 or 3 boats,
Yep.
There are jet skis,
yeah. I mean,
2 jet skis there are,
Forklift.
they're leaving.
Well, and there's.
Yeah, they're
there's
there
no
now.
Firewood there for,
Firewood, you're gonna store that outside.
I understand that, but there's enough there for more than.
But does the conditional approval deny us from outside storage during the process?
Yes,
I wasn't aware of that myself.
it was, it's called an approval. You got it in writing. Those
I'll
are
go look
conditions.
it up, yeah. I personally was not aware of it.
It was the board's expectation that you'd be done by then.
Agreed.
All right.
We had a price on a Morton building, we had, you know,
Oh,
looked to
I
place the
know, I
deposit.
understand that.
I
But
think
the
we
councilman's
submitted the
point-
plans to the town.
The councilman's point is well taken. These are factors that would mitigate against the granting of an extension. But Mr. Holmesy's been before us many times, if I'm not mistaken, regarding this lot. We've had public hearings on this. The public has, the abutters have spoken. Well, I would be inclined to grant them the extension with the understanding that the conditions of approval must be immediately adhered to. And if it's brought to our attention that it's not, then perhaps the board could revisit this decision tonight if it decides to extend.
Can I ask you a question then about even shrink-wrapped winter storage, like for my own boat? Is it not possible to put it on my property?
If it says in your condition of approval that there's no storage outdoors, the answer with that, I would think would be yes, but you should probably consult your attorney before you.
Then we do have the hoop building, as he called it. You can put it in, if it's put inside that, is that considered inside storage then at that point?
I think the term inside and outside, these terms, I learned in kindergarten.
Well,
So,
it's inside a structure.
okay.
It's a question I have.
If I might.
Sure, follow up.
If we
Bruce.
were tonight to deny the extension, can they come back and
They would.
reapply?
They would have to. All over again.
The only reason I even asked that question is because there seems to be confusion, perhaps fairly, but nevertheless confusion about what is and isn't allowed. And maybe it would give us a chance to, in detail, outline what can and can't be done.
Well, maybe you could make a motion to table this for next month, and then we'll see what the site looks like then.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, Mr. Chairman.
Was that your motion,
It is.
Councilman?
It is.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, staff is waving.
And that's fine. The couple of other options would be to table it to the next month so that they have time to respond to these concerns and check out their, I mean, I have had multiple discussions with the property owner about this condition, so this is not a new issue. Another possibility would be to do a 6-month extension. That kind of gives them a little bit of pressure to get going, perhaps, but, I mean,
February, you mean we revisit it when it's all snowed in and frozen?
well, I mean, the concerns that are being expressed tonight would still be visible, snow or no snow.
Yeah, but then the excuse would be we can't move it till spring.
Yeah.
I think, from my perspective, Dean, to ask for a 1-month extension so they can demonstrate to us that they're gonna meet the requirements is not outrageous. It certainly hasn't denied them.
Right.
It just put off for a month
So you're
their
saying-
extension. And I'm prepared to give him an extension if he fixes this to the neighbors and to our satisfaction. That's, I guess, where I was going.
Yeah. So procedurally, I would think, I would prefer a table as
That-
opposed
That
to.
is the motion pending.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was
That's
to.
the motion.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Well, that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So, is there any further discussion regarding the motion that is pending? That, so you understand, the motion is that this request for an extension will simply be tabled for a month.
Understood.
Okay. And somebody from staff will verify, take some pictures of our own, that sort of thing.
And the expectation between now and next month's meeting is that,
They'll be
the
in compliance
conditions-
with the conditions of approval regarding
Which-
storage on the property.
which means all these items that look like there's outdoor storage going on there, that all has to be rectified?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think that, I mean, or the alternative is that then the extension is denied and they start all over. And, I have one question for staff. So when we extend a CUP for a wetland buffer intrusion, do we need to reevaluate or redelineate the wetland? Or how long is a wetland delineation good for? Because it occurs to me that seasonal changes, even weather patterns could change over time, the longer that the matter is left unresolved. There are drainage features that aren't installed, things like that.
I would say if there is a suspicion that something has changed with the wetlands, then yes, you would be within your right to do that. I don't have any indication of that at this particular property, but in
No,
general.
I was meant
yeah,
in general, yeah,
In general, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you? Yes, Rich?
Stacy, I have a question. I believe the Conservation Commission was not in favor of this application, correct?
They did grant
Okay.
approval only because stuff had already been done.
Okay.
So it was an after the fact.
Okay.
Which they weren't happy about, but there was no,
But there were some mitigating conditions in the approval, if I'm not mistaken, weren't there? Yeah. So,
this is the property with that stone wall, right?
right,
And, yeah, they were told that absolutely nothing near there to go.
So-
Excuse me, nothing near, we put in a retaining wall, which
Right.
was inside our property outside the the buffer, we can't go inside that, correct? And we have not.
And I think there were issues with the swale off to the, if you were facing it off to the right, and I think those got resolved.
We cleaned up the right side of the property, which we didn't cause that problem to begin with. It was existing, and we did go in and clean it all up, and for the drainage from the street that caused flooding to
Right.
the next door neighbor's property, we went
Right,
in
yeah.
at our expense and did clean that up, correct?
all right. Now, my question simply went towards the possibility that if we granted you the extension, that the actual boundary of the wetland would change, would therefore might require us to revisit the issue of the CUP, but I'm told that that isn't necessarily so. So, if you will continue to monitor that situation and be careful not to exceed the boundaries of your,
We haven't gone
Approval.
into the area that was marked off by Brian Bailey at all. And if anything, the water has gone farther back, actually, but we still haven't gone
It was a
anywhere
dry
outside
summer.
the stone walls.
it was a dry summer, but so far it's
Sure
been a
was.
pretty
Been-
wet fall.
Couple days, yeah, we've had some good rain,
Yeah.
which we need.
Definitely did. All right, thank you, Mr. Itzke.
Iskey.
Itzke. Any further discussion on the motion? The motion is to table the applicant's request for an extension until the October meeting, which will be on the 4th. All right, any questions? Any further discussion? Sensing none. All those in favor, say aye, or
Aye.
raise your hands, or whatever we're gonna do. Raise your hands. Opposed? No, it's unanimous. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
May the force
Appreciate
be
your
with
time.
you. All right. 7.2, PL 2022-00 44SU 808 Weirs Boulevard. It's a request to extend approval. This is a conversion, a condominium conversion project. And I see Attorney Wood magically appearing at the podium. Good evening. I take it you represent the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I do represent the applicant. My name is Ethan Wood. I'm an attorney with Normandin, Cheney and O'Neill. Functionally, what we have is a situation where our applicant is ambitious but novices in this. And what they have done is worked through the entire project, but hadn't necessarily lined up the surveyors to complete the boundary survey of the lot that's required. And so while that, I understand, has occurred, we're still waiting on a finalized plan from the surveyors, but we'd anticipate that in the next month. So really what we're looking for is simply an extension of the first two deadlines that were required to make sure that I can button up the condominium documents and the surveyor can complete their work.
So you don't need a year.
No. We need maximum of a month. And it's really only the first two deadlines. The project plan is still on track to be completed according to the final deadline, which I believe was June of 2023. It's really simply the information that we need to provide to staff.
Okay. So it's a limited extension request. Any questions for Attorney Wood? I guess we have no questions. So 30 days, 60 days?
I think 30 days would be sufficient, but if the board wants to give us a little bit of cushion, 60 days should be more than sufficient. As I said, I think the plans are almost finalized, and then it's simply a matter of me buttoning up the condominium documents.
Yeah, and I believe in the law according to Murphy, too, so. I
That's
practiced it for years. Yes, Stacy?
Down at the bottom, it was just saying the timelines are at least 90 days out.
Well, when we filed that, that was accurate.
Oh, okay.
I've been noticed today that they anticipate it being sooner than that. So, I mean, if the board would like to grant 90 days, I'm happy to accept 90 days because I don't think there's a prohibition against submitting it early, and it's just the deadlines for the staff. And when I say just the deadlines, I mean the plan and
Right, yeah.
Plans and the
Right.
condominium documents, so.
correct.
All right. Staff?
November 1?
Huh?
November 1?
November 1? Okay. So staff is recommending an extension to November 1. Would someone care to make a motion?
I'll make that motion that we extend PL 2021-01137 SP. Oh, I got that wrong. 0044 SU 808 Weirs Boulevard, extend until November 1st.
Okay, and to be clear, we're only extending the deadlines for production of plans and documents. The completion date would remain the same. Is that your intent?
Yes.
Okay.
We're clear on
I'll
that.
second it.
There's a second by Mr. St. Clair. Any discussion on this motion? Well, sensing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Abstained?
Thank you very much, Mr.
Approved.
Chair, members of the board. We appreciate your time.
All right. It's good to have ambitious clients. All right, PL 2021-0113 SP. I can't see with the glasses, I can't see without them. That's 18 Endicott Street North, the North Water Marine. Request to extend the approval to reconstruct the storage building. Well, I bet we'll hear a similar tale of woe to previous one regarding
much identical.
building materials and stuff. Would you state your name for the record, sir?
Matt Bangert, I'm representing North Water Marine, 18 Endicott Street.
So what's going on?
Well, it's the tale of woe of the current market conditions. Building prices have come in astronomically higher than we had anticipated. We're rebidding, going back out to different contractors and working to get better pricing in. Some of our preferred contractors, local contractors, are so full that we can't use them. Nutter was, for example, was one of our preferred vendors. He can't even touch the project until going into next year. So we've looked for others, gone to others. Pricing continues to be the primary problem. And we've just got to keep working at finding the right combination of contractors and our methods and means for the project in order to get the pricing, at least, we're not going to get where we expected, but we at least get it into a reasonable range. The second thing that we've experienced is, if you remember when we came through the approvals, we had Building 5, which was an existing building that was in structural failure. And it was structurally failing because of rainwater runoff going down an embankment and eroding the embankment. That took precedence over everything we were doing because we had to get that first torn down so it was safe, and then secondly, get the embankment on the Weir's Channel stabilized so it didn't continue to fall into the channel.
That would be bad, yeah.
It would be. And it was close. It was for anybody that went out there when we were
I remember the building.
it was a pretty impressive process that they went through to put that wall in. Walls installed, banks stabilized. We just got our inspections on that. We have a little bit of erosion control to do, but outside of that, everything, the inspector was happy with what he saw. So that took us longer as well to get done, and that was our number one priority, to get that. Then moving on to Building 12, the storage building. So in terms of its functionality and the scope of the project, nothing has changed. There's some drainage mitigation and work that has to be done. And then the building itself will be a combination of boat storage and service, which is what we were originally applied for and allowed.
So refresh our memory, if you would. Was you going to replace that steel building with another steel building on the same site after you stabilize the foundation and the
Yes.
runoff?
Yes.
Okay. So how will you be operating the boatyard this fall and winter without that building?
The boatyard has operated since spring without the building. That's a separate lot.
Right.
And the function of it, basically, we've moved a lot of that functionality up into the rack storage buildings up in Lot 10, further up in. And they've been bringing boats down from Lot 10 versus taking them from that building and moving them to the launch
Those
ramp.
are across Channel Lane, right?
Correct.
So what are you going to do with the site of the old, would you call it, building?
Building 5.
Building 5?
Yep. That's under another approval and zoning approval where there will be 4 buildings put up, rack storage buildings put up on that space. And that is in process now as well for bidding
Okay.
and trying to get that lined up both delivery-wise and economically. Again, same problem.
Sure.
Our costs on that have escalated about 30% on the buildings. Site work is out of sight. I mean, it's just expensive right now. Because bottom line is everybody has all the work they need right now, and a lot of the people we're getting bids from, it's either way out or it is, we'll throw a number at it and you'll bite on it, we'll do the work.
What I don't understand is I'm hearing that we're going into a recession, and yet over and over again, I'm hearing that contractors I know from personal experience, it takes them a month to return your call, and then they tell you they couldn't get to it for another 10 or 12, so.
I just built a house and got to enjoy $100 sheet plywood.
I don't even want to go down that road.
Yep.
I've been in a constant state of renovation for several years now, and, I've got a permanent scar on the back of me from kicking myself for not getting it done sooner, but who would have thought $100 sheets of drywall, or plywood for that matter? Try buying a 3/4 sheet of plywood. It's just ridiculous.
We just took a 35% increase across the board in all drywall products.
Well,
So it's pervasive, it's everywhere, it's gonna come back down at some point, but
oh, yeah.
it's a matter of how steep is that curve gonna be in the drop?
Well, that's above our labor grade.
Yep.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
I have a question,
Yes, Charlie?
because of my ignorance. I'm just confused, I'm a little confused, and I've been trying to, the four buildings, are here, the big tall buildings.
Right, that's a
This
separate,
building- This building is, if I'm looking at it from the water, it's to the left of it?
it's on the opposite side of Channel Lane. So
This is on the opposite side.
it backs up to the drive-in movie theater
Okay,
property.
all right, I'm clear now.
Yeah. That was our
easy.
first, so that was our first
Yep.
permit, and then the second was the four buildings.
Okay.
So this doesn't affect the four buildings?
No, this has nothing to do with this.
And but this was up gradient,
Yep.
right? So you had to deal with that drainage problem.
We had to deal with that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
That was our first priority, is to get that.
You didn't find any archaeological remains while you were excavating up there, did you?
Didn't find a thing, it's all
That's
fill.
a pretty rich Paleo-Indian site, you know, we should talk about that.
It's all fill. What we did in our borings, interestingly, is that it's all fill back in there, and I think what happens is that fill rises as you go towards the drive-in.
Yep. If you go far enough back, there's probably some interesting things. but
You go down deep enough, it's concrete, basically.
If you do hit any such remains, please give Dean here a call.
So
so
he would
we
be my
can all
first phone
go out
call.
and make a site visit. My amateur archaeology days. All right.
I have a quick question.
Sure, Scott.
During this rebidding and so on, do you anticipate having to accept any, like, cheaper alternatives or materials that would affect the plans that we saw that were initially
We're
submitted?
hoping not. What we're looking at is more, we're going broader into different markets to look for people to bid it. For instance, we have a group out of Ohio they specialize in these kinds of buildings. We looked locally, then kept going a little bit further. Now we're out to, these folks went out and visited them. Really solid, good group. They contain all of their production under one house. They do all their own fab. And their prices are accordingly lower. And of course, they're in Ohio, which is a lower cost labor market than around here.
But you're right on a working rail line, you know.
We are.
I bet it goes all the way to Ohio in the other direction.
Somehow or another, we can
Yep.
get it there.
Actually goes all the way to California in the other direction if you wanna cut it right way. Thank you.
To answer your
It's
question,
always showing off, this guy.
we're trying our level best to maintain the quality of what we're trying to accomplish at the marina. And I think if you go over and look at what we've done so far, it's showing.
have.
It's just taking us longer than we wanted.
Thank you.
It's a complicated site, so we get that. All right, any other questions for the applicant? Does staff want to weigh in on this one?
Nope.
Okay,
They're all good.
so what is the pleasure of the board? Would we grant this gentleman his extension? What would be the date?
Next September, I believe our permit approval date is September 9th.
So to 9/9/23,
Yes.
all right. Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? So motion by,
I'll second.
okay, motion by the chief, seconded by Mr. McNeil. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Communist? All right. Thank you.
Thank you
Good
very
luck.
much.
May you have a good fall season. Lots of money to pay for all these improvements, man. All right, we've gone through the extensions, it looks like. Next up is PL 2022-0087 SP. It's 39 Messer Street. It's a proposal to convert a single-family dwelling into a multifamily. Is the application complete and ready for acceptance?
The application is complete, but as you may have noticed on the staff report, we have questions about whether the zoning requirements have been met from the number of parking spaces. And I know that the applicant wants to address that. So I'm not sure how you want to proceed with that.
Acceptance simply means that there's sufficient information for us to hold a public hearing.
And that
If you don't think there's sufficient information for us to hold a public hearing, and one was noticed for tonight, right? Then we wouldn't accept it, and it would be held over for another month,
I think you'd be good to do that.
okay? Well, let's hear from the applicant.
You want motion to accept?
Well, I think, I'm confused. I think he's saying that we might not accept
really
it
Comfortable accepting it
if it's, yeah,
with,
without the adequate parking indicated in
That's
the
what
plan.
he just said.
Well, you,
Did I misunderstand you, Dean? Or are we
One-
ready
one
to
second.
accept and move this forward to
No,
a discussion purposes?
I think you could, given the definition from the chair of, is there enough information to proceed and have a public hearing, and between what's here and what has already been presented and what the applicant is gonna share with you, then I think the question is yes. I mean, the answer is yes, but you'll have some decisions to make later.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Instead of just, the chair would entertain a motion to accept in a second, and then we would have discussion on that, and we will hear from the applicant, and then we'll decide if indeed there is sufficient technical information and documentary support for the applicants.
I have a question first, if that's okay.
Can we do the motion first, maybe?
No, I have a question before the motion.
Okay, sure.
If that's okay. Is this a zoning question about this parking? Because if it's a zoning question, I'm just asking this. If it's a zoning question, are we jumping ahead of that?
No. It's a zoning requirement, which is also part of your purview and the application's purview. So whether they're meeting the requirements of zoning is one of the things that you're going to need to decide.
The applicant has not evidently requested an exemption or a special exception from
Correct.
in the zoning ordinance, so they have to abide by the zoning ordinance for this.
Well, that's
board.
why I'm asking, if they have to abide by the zoning ordinance, will this,
They believe they have parking. We disagree.
All right,
You're
So
the
I think-
You're the referee.
yeah.
marvelous.
So do we have a motion to accept the application?
I'll motion to accept.
Motion, is there, from the chief, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay, Mr. Bellavo. By way of discussion, would the board like to hear from the applicant and then have a discussion? I will give the floor to you. Would you just?
Do we have to
You
vote
want
on
to
the
vote
motion?
on the?
No, this is discussion.
Just to accept the application?
Do we need to vote on to accept it? We made the motion to.
Yes, well, I would say that we need to discuss it before we vote on it.
To accept
Just
the,
acceptance, not approval.
I understand that.
okay.
It is my understanding that the planning director has said that the application is not complete. We normally do not accept applications if they're not complete, but the applicant would like to explain something to us about that. So let's hear from the applicant, and then we will decide whether to accept the application. And if so, we may or may not proceed to a public hearing, but presumably there are people here that would like to have a public hearing, so. I mean, it may not be in the applicant's best interest to go forward with the public hearing tonight, if indeed the plans are not sufficient. So, okay, any other board input before we go to the applicant? Okay, hi, would you state your name and your relationship to the project and
Lisa White, I own 39 Messer.
okay,
I'm not quite sure what, I just heard you say for me about not proceeding, I don't know what that
there are
means.
2 steps in the process. One is the board has to vote to accept your application, to formally accept it for consideration. we normally only do that if the planning department is convinced or is sufficiently certain that it's complete. He's saying that he doesn't think it's necessarily complete because the plans as submitted in the planning department's opinion does not meet zoning, doesn't meet the zoning requirements. So if we were to grant the acceptance, then normally we would proceed right to the public hearing, which would be to vote the project up or down, you see? That's not what we're doing here. This is a preliminary step. And I'm getting a very strong indication that there's been some miscommunication between you and the planning department as to your parking requirements.
Yes.
So maybe you could explain to us what you believe the parking requirements are and whether you've submitted sufficient proof to us that you've done that.
So they had asked me to provide 5 parking, 9 by 19 parking spaces in our driveway. And I called Porter Paving and had them come mark out the spots for me to see if they would fit. And there were 5 parking spots. There were actually 6, but we didn't even bother with the 6th one because it was close to my property line, so we left that out.
Okay.
I thought that was enough. I don't know what else. I
This
don't know
is
if I'm
all
supposed to
off-street
add it.
parking, right?
There, it's in our driveway, yes.
Isn't that a shared driveway?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it an easement, or is there a property line that runs right down the middle? Or on one side or the other?
I think it's an easement. I'm not sure. I gave him the deed thing that explains that it's shared property, and the homeowner, the 35 Messer, he's actually on vacation right now, but we weren't sure, because he's young too, but we weren't sure how to write up a letter, because it said to do some kind of language, so he was gonna come down here with me, but they left.
So
We
you,
do have photos here, Mr. Chair, but
Okay.
there's not copies for everyone, so I'm gonna flip through them quick.
okay,
I'll pass them around.
okay. So the reason I asked is, if you have a shared driveway, you may or may not own it. You understand that?
So the parking side, but we share the coming in and out of the actual
Yeah.
driveway, yes.
So are any of the parking spaces within
Nope.
the driveway
Not
area
Not
itself?
directly on his property line.
Okay.
Well, I'm a little confused here. So you said Porter Paving came in 9, you said 5 spots, 9 foot wide.
So that's I think an older photo. The driveway has been widened on both sides.
But I'm assuming this is the lot line that's delineated here. It's got a 5-foot jog in it.
Yeah.
And so if I just scale off 57 feet, and you need 45 feet for 9 parking spots and lay it out there, it doesn't come close.
There are
You've
3
got-
down the driveway and 2 at the end of the driveway. And they are measured out and they fit. The cars are even parked in the drive, so you could see that they actually fit. And a car side by side passing, so there's passing room
But-
as well.
But what
You're
I'm,
showing on this picture, the 4 parked in the driveway?
He's here and then down the driveway?
he has the updated photos,
Okay.
like real
Here
pictures.
they laid out tape
all
and
laid
stuff on the pictures, so you
okay, but
Better, that's better.
Is this her house?
Yes.
yes.
the issue has to do with whether you're allowed to park in the driveway, is what I'm getting at.
Of course we're allowed to park in the driveway.
Well, you don't even know if you have an easement or if you own it in fee. How could you
I
possibly
don't
know that?
understand the question, so I don't know what an easement, I don't understand that part, so I can't answer it without,
I know that.
yeah, I don't know.
These are questions that are usually answered before they're brought to the planning board, is what I'm saying. It's a preliminary
it's-
thing.
But it's our driveway, so I don't understand why.
I
It's
know you
never
don't
been
understand.
There's
Hang
2
on.
parts.
The blue line is that represented to be the property line?
No, those are all, I didn't do that part. I just did all the parking because they wanted them measured out.
So what's the blue line?
Would these be
Marked out
numbered?
parking.
Oh, I see.
Like, would each person get their own spot?
The actual tenants that would be staying there would get the 2 that are out front or in the front all by themselves, right in front of the actual
That's what I'm
building.
concerned about, is parking in the driveway.
On the street, or?
No, that's not on
Okay.
the street, that's
You're
in the
talking
driveway.
about,
That's
in
the
front
side,
right
so
here.
there's 3 on that side, that's the driveway. And then there's passing room, you can see the cars passing on
understand that they
one
may
of the
not have
pictures,
the right
following
to
pictures.
park in this
The
picture.
tenants would actually have the 2 that are
Yeah,
squared
lot.
side by side.
According to this. How's that gonna be shared?
I know.
I'm just trying to figure out if I was
shows,
there, how,
you
if
know, like
somebody
the
was
cars
parked
parked right
behind
there,
me,
right? So
how
if
would I get out?
drive by, the cars are parked here.
We've been managing for
That's their property.
2 years like that, 3 years.
It's right down the middle.
Not sure.
Actually, the property line is more towards,
Is it 3 apartments or 2 apartments?
See, I
Just
have a
It's a
shared
studio and a 1-bedroom in the
Neighbors
barn.
are
even
very
further
nice.
over like here.
Plus the house.
Go
And then
into
the
their
house.
driveway.
Driveway from the neighbor.
Yeah, that's,
That's my question.
that's a parking space right there, buddy. That's what that is.
There's a good picture of the 3 on the side. So that's just the approximate.
Right. The shared is you're using yours, but you're not using theirs.
Are they gonna share those with us, or are they gonna- are they gonna share those?
Do you have you engaged the services of a professional site planner or?
No, they just asked me to provide the measurements, so I figured a paving company would know the answer to making parking spots. So I asked them to do that.
So,
Well-
okay, so, I
So
mean, this picture right here, if there's a car here and a car here, how is this car getting out?
Well, it's taped, so I have to make straight lines. The cards are actually tilted a little. If they're, you have it, can I come up there?
Sure.
Might actually make sense to have head-in parking
Right here,
there.
it's the same right here, so.
But then they have to back into this area.
So
This is
here's
somebody
this,
else's
they
property.
actually park like more at an angle instead of here, so it's, their cars are.
It's nice,
tilted
there's a nice
for some
fire
reason
pit
out,
down
and
here.
I don't have card tape, so I couldn't
See it
make
in the
it curve,
overhead.
so I had to do straight.
Randy
on
Park,
that.
they used to own all these. And he
But they park, there's actually three cars actually parked there.
That's why they park at an angle, because if someone's parked here,
They
they
can go
pull
right around
around
it.
and they pull
Cross the
straight
river's
in.
nice.
That's what
And
she's
those
saying,
little
these
tiny holes.
rectangles should be more at an angle, this one.
Okay.
So that it's kind of like the 45 parking
It's all
downstairs.
riverfront.
So you're already fitting 5 cars in here?
Slots on along the side are taking up the shared
Three
driveway.
down and then 3 here, and then they have two in theirs parking, and then his car.
You gotta have some kind
Garage,
of
they don't
agreement
really-
or
they
something.
just store their cars for the winter. Yeah, no, it worked, yeah, I don't know how to make it look like it works, I mean, we.
There are
all 3
tenants
cars.
in here already?
My children.
Oh,
Rent out, I mean, they were living in my house, so I gave them their own space, so.
got
Which,
it.
where is Mr. Conda Demitraki's property?
You can't get a,
We received an email comment today from
Holy cow.
from an abutter.
Yeah.
This is their driveway.
Yeah, this
I'd be
sketchy.
wiping off,
Number 45.
He's to the left if you're.
yeah, what I'm saying to you is,
45, 43.
I'd be wiping off mirrors.
To the north. He's up,
Away from town.
yeah, towards the
Towards the road.
tracks. Yeah.
good luck, boys.
Okay. So not a direct abutter?
These things.
Or on the back of this property, on the back
On
side?
the other side.
Yeah, okay.
Not sharing the driveway.
So his primary concern in that email, which will be part of the record, you'll be able to read it if you haven't seen it, is people parking on the street, basically. Parking in the sub-lawn and parking, on the curb. That's not allowed.
No, but there's also 2 Airbnbs next to us that they're people parking that don't belong to anyone in my home. They're Massachusetts plates, there's Pennsylvania plates, there's
Are they
people there.
parking on the street, ma'am?
That's the street people, the people who, I think who, if I'm correct on what you're saying, I can't control who parks on the street, and they're parking in front of my house. I don't complain. I'm assuming the town owns that, not us.
Well, they
So-
do, actually, and it's actually a parking violation, and,
Yep.
But Public Works obviously doesn't want people parking on the sub-lawn or the curb itself. But then again, there's no signage there that says no parking this side. So you could legally park wheel to curb.
Yes, you could.
But that would seriously cause a problem for abutting properties, right? Her property as well, people being able to see in both directions when they come out of the driveway.
Mr.
So
Chair?
these two vehicles are in the two driveway parking spaces, right?
Mr. Chair,
Here's the
Peter?
kicker.
Yes, sir.
On that parking thing there, the street there is wide enough for people to park there. It always has been. It's up by the railroad tracks where it narrows down. The city, for whatever reason, never brought the parking spaces, the white lines, those end down closer to Messer Street, I'm sorry, to Church Street for whatever reason. The issue is that most people don't realize it's wide enough there, they park there, so they just automatically go on the sublawn. And it's been a problem for the city for years, long before they took over that property.
Right.
I don't know who the cars are that park there, that I don't know, and she would obviously know more. But people can legally park there, not overnight, not,
They
during the
can
winter
park,
and stuff.
they can park right wheel to curb, they can't cross the curb.
That's correct, they
I
can't go up on a
understand.
sublawn.
And that's not her problem, because unless they're doing that in front of her property,
Well, they do it all.
They do do it in
they
front
do
of
it all
all of
over
our
the city.
properties.
then you call the police, to get them.
They do it all over the city.
It is very tight, yeah.
And the two, yeah, those are passing, they're not parked. The black truck was passing the white truck.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Right off.
I'm not, I think what I'm concerned about, and I know that this is confusing to you, is I'm concerned that you haven't demonstrated that you have the legal right to put parking spaces in that driveway. All right? You don't know, I mean, we have,
It's a paved driveway, how would we not have had that when I bought it?
you can own a piece of property and not have the unlimited right to use it. That's what an easement is. You still own it up to the line that's been surveyed, but other people may have a right to use a portion of your property for access and egress. I mean, I know that you're doing this without professional assistance, but honestly, I'm confused as to whether we should even be
So
looking at
how could I have a
this.
house with no parking, but I have to have 5 parking spots for 2 apartments? I don't understand that, I guess, would be my more question.
Okay, so, I know you don't understand that's for us to worry about. What does the board intend to do? Now, the issue is whether to accept this application. Are you satisfied that these questions that we've been raising are not sufficiently important to maybe delay acceptance until the applicant gets their application together?
Well, I think we have a motion on the table to accept or deny, so.
That's correct, so we're doing
Motion's
discussion.
on the table. Again, I would just echo the same concerns about utilizing a shared driveway where there's an easement and you're just going to unilaterally.
We don't know if
utilize-
there's an easement.
Well, okay, true. So
But-
there are some legal questions here that I think the applicant needs to do a little research, look into, maybe get a little professional help with that aspect of your project.
I mean, it's a beautiful property, it's riverfront. Zoning allows multifamily in there. What is this parking requirement's 1.5 per unit, right? Okay, so that's really the math. You may have to reconfigure your lot, or your site, or your site plan in order to move the parking spaces out of that driveway, if indeed you can't legally put parking spaces in it. I know you understand, you've shown us there's room for 2 vehicles to pass, but if it's an easement and your people are parking in one half of the driveway, it basically prohibits the abutting owner from parking in the driveway as well. It takes that option off the table, and I don't see anything in the application itself that indicates that you would have a legal right to do that, and you don't have a site plan that meets that requirement. Because if you'd had somebody professionally prepare a site plan, they would have noted, easements of record and things like that.
So the deed doesn't state, the thing I gave them earlier doesn't state that it's anything about parking? I mean, that was,
I don't know what the deed says, but usually it's just meets and bounds, which means your property runs from this point, so many feet to this point, turns, goes so many feet to this point. Doesn't say anything about the use of the property. And there may be an easement that exists in a completely separate document. Like if you own a property, you can grant an easement to somebody else, and that easement runs with the property. A prior owner may have given that easement to an abutter. I mean, that's usually how shared driveways come about anyway, you know?
you have an easement. Yeah, you have one signed in there, and they have it. They have, so, thank you. I think I handed it to them. I thought,
This guy wanted to make this lawn and start parking his 2 cars here. Then they
Well, he
went-
can't, he wouldn't be able to, the way she's delineating the parking spaces, that's what I.
No, this guy, the neighbor,
Yeah.
if he wanted to park here instead of in the back, then they don't have access to the back.
Right, but I'm saying he wouldn't be able to do that if she had 2 parking spaces right there, right?
Well, he could, but then she would be out of business.
Well, then the driveway would be impassable.
That's,
Wouldn't that be a fire hazard to have 2 spots right in the driveway itself?
I'm her husband.
Single-family homes park right up against their house
Because
all the
it's
time.
shared?
There would be enough
If that
room.
was your own single-family home and that was your small, you park right next to your house anyhow, so in a lot of cases, no.
But it's not really a single-family home, it's a shared driveway, so it has to be some
It's a different issue with a multi.
consideration for.
Can I interrupt you guys
Wouldn't
one
hit any
second?
fire code.
I don't see a fire, in fact, this all may be entirely proper.
with a multifamily, that should be an issue, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not a single
You've gotta provide access to every tenant
Yeah.
at all times.
Right,
And they have to provide safety to every tenant, I think is the other issue.
that's true.
But I think
so
the gentleman.
right now, we have the two places where my children abide. Their cars are there. We've been parking and utilizing that space for 3 years since I've owned it. The same amount of cars. There's actually more cars than even stipulated there. There's never been an issue with moving, maybe if my son's pulling tires off his car to fix it, because he likes to work on his car, that might be an issue, but he's now in the garage. But anyway, no one's ever had an issue with that. We all work at different times, we all are
Some
there.
legal things have to be settled because, let's say, you might have an agreement with your neighbor and, I don't know, you agree,
Yeah.
handshake. If he sells that property, somebody else comes in, and that's unresolved.
Right, I don't think I would've bought a house that told me you have no parking spots. So if you're telling me I can't park on
Well, you bought
the
a
street,
single family.
even a single family, I should have a parking spot. If I bought a house, if I'm legally obligated to give a studio apartment 1.5 spots, I just bought a 4-bedroom home, that I should be legally having a spot instead of saying you can park on the street 6 months out of the year, and then you gotta figure it out. But
There
That's
is
just
a
me.
there is a signed agreement between both neighbors. It's in the paperwork. It's been there for years. Last year, now, I know you guys are doing your job, and she's a single mother. Not a single mother. She's a mother of 5 children, and she's not a condo down at the Wares, or she's not some millionaire for profit. She's just trying to subsidize some of her mortgage here and trying to raise a family in the times that we live in. Now, you guys last year approved the neighbor that we share the driveway with to make it a multifamily. Every single house on that street, on Messer Street, is a multifamily, except for us. We want to have our 2 kids live out back and be legal with you guys. We've come down here to do it the right way and not go, try and get help from the city. She doesn't know everything about planning and zoning. She doesn't work here, and she's done what she has to do in her life, and that's raise kids. She's just down here to ask for a little help and see how we can move this process along. There's no fight back here. We're just looking for help, and we're trying to survive here in this town. We're not the people coming up here from Mass, building multi-million-dollar condos, okay? It's the situation is pretty common sense to look at. 2 cars can drive up and down. The driveway's been expanded on both sides, retaining walls on both sides, and you can drive cars back and forth, and you can park 6, 7 cars at the bottom of the driveway by themselves. You can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a 6th car can go under the other person's deck. So that's all we're trying to get to. Where nobody's pulling this isn't a sneaky deal
Honest to
downtown.
God, that you misunderstood
Yeah.
the board's intentions here. It's just that we are used to getting more information
I know.
to indicate whether or not the application itself is complete. That's the only issue
We
we're
understand
talking
that.
about right now. We're not even talking about approval. We're talking about whether we should accept the application.
Yeah.
So, why don't we,
Can I just,
absolutely.
you know, you talk about 2 cars can pass in the driveway, that's fine
Yeah.
tonight. Let's talk about in February when there's,
It
We've
worked
been
all
there for
winter.
years.
We've been there, we've owned the house for 3 years. I drove a Dodge 2500, which is a huge truck, and they all pass. He has his Dodge, we pass. There's
Okay.
never been an issue.
the other question I have for you is, I thought I heard him say that you want your kids to have that back apartment.
They stay there in the summertime, that's where they stay, and they've been staying there, yes. Because they're, need their own space, they're all 18 and over, and it
Well,
works.
So what are we doing this for?
I'm
For your
trying to
kids
make it
live-
legal so they can have an address, and I'm not sneaking behind the town, and I don't know, just didn't wanna get in trouble, that I have 2 apartments in my house if they're staying in it, so I'm trying to make everything legal.
And part of the other situation is she bought, I know you probably guys know the properties in that whole surrounding area. They were all a rehab, and they were all sober houses, and they were all converted over. And a lot of work had been done to them, but not all of them had came down here and got permits. So now here we are, years later, and we're talking to people and going over everything, and now we're trying to get everything legitimized so that it's not from the previous owner and all the add-ons they made for when it was approved for a sober house. There was way more cars and way more people living there than what we have living there now. You know, but now we're dealing with the after effects of stuff being done without permits being done, and she's trying to get her house, put into a multifamily.
No, I think, if I may, I think the more pertinent question for this board or concern is, to grant or approve an application where we don't have assurances or certainty that that you can legally occupy a shared driveway with designated parking.
And we might, and to follow that up, I've stressed, this is the first step of a 2-step process. If we accept the application, well, then we're gonna move to public hearing. And the board may not approve the development as it is being presented to us today. That's all I'm saying. It might be in your best interest to go out, consult somebody, come back with the proofs that we need. But let me ask the planning director, they're saying that there is an easement or some sort of a written agreement. Do we have that?
We have the deed which states that it's a shared driveway. The statement does not address parking. It just addresses the use to pass and repass on the driveway.
Okay.
Over a passageway of 10 feet in width.
And the driveway is, the actual width is what?
Well, the blue lines was 9 feet, so I didn't measure all the way across, because I was just doing this.
But the lot lines encroaches into the driveway. Part of the driveway is on,
Yeah, the lot line, because the land's never been surveyed, because you can tell by the numbers on the picture, but the line that the city has goes directly down the center path of the driveway, of the original driveway, and on both sides of the driveway, it's been extended 5 feet or whatever it is to the retaining walls. So there's an original driveway, and then on the right side and on the left side, they've both been extended 5 feet. Or you can see it probably in the pictures with the 2 trucks parked right next to each other
yeah,
in the same driveway.
This refer,
that's the lot line. That truck is encroached on the neighbor's lot.
This is the
Right, and
language.
that drop isn't written in the 5 parking spots that I gave you. We excluded that,
Oh,
so
that's a
that's
priority.
not even in there.
You can't always go by the city GIS lines, though. The dimensions might be correct, but it doesn't line up
Right, the
necessarily
visual's not correct.
with the aerial.
So the clause in the deed that addresses the driveway reads as follows. Also, meaning this also granted, is the right to pass and repass on common, comma. Pass and repass on common indicates that it's a shared use. Over a passageway of 10 feet in width on the southerly side of the above described premises, and running back from said Messer Street a distance of 57 feet, and being the same land conveyed to George W. Clark by Joseph B.F. Bell, dated October 15th, 1889, recorded in Book 8297, and then, of course, later there's a meaning and intending clause that indicates the transfer to Randy.
Was that 1989, Peter?
No, that's the deed, the deed that conveyed the use of that 10-foot lane
Very interesting.
goes all the way back to October 15th, 1889. Those two homes were built with a shared driveway, and they've always had a shared driveway. The question is, I don't know what that language actually means. It seems to indicate that this deed includes the right to pass over the neighbor's 10 feet of the driveway.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
In other words, the two homes can use that driveway as they please, to pass and repass.
But we don't
Not as
have,
they see fit, to pass and repass.
is there a similar clause in the neighbor's deed that says,
That I don't know.
so that's,
But that, Peter, but that says of the above described parcel, which is their parcel. So
Yeah, yeah.
it means 10 feet on the southerly side of their parcel, not of the other parcel.
oh, I see, you're right, yes. Over a passageway of 10 feet in width on the southerly side of the above described premises. So that means on their side of the line. Okay. So, so if I'm reading this deed correctly, what it says is that you're entitled to half the driveway, roughly. You have a 10-foot clear.
And those cars are marked as 9 feet, so there's actually
And,
a foot.
and that is a common passageway with your neighbor. All right? And that is the 10-foot wide strip that you intend to put 2 parking places in.
Which makes it no longer a passageway.
Yeah, I think you really need to go to a lawyer with this, because it's not, we're not trying to make this difficult for you. The staff has already indicated that they're not comfortable with what you've submitted. And it might, as I've said, be in your best interest to go back to the drawing board and come back, rather than have us accept the application and then move forward to the public hearing tonight. Yes, Charlie?
Thank you. So would it be satisfactory if they went with an attorney or somebody and got a new agreement with the property owner next door that said they could use that as parking,
I think,
that space?
I
Would
think,
that work?
I think what we need is an attorney to give an opinion as to what that clause in the deed actually means, and be able to indicate on paper where it is on the site plan. There's no
Can they-
real site plan here.
Can they update it, though? I don't understand. Can a deed be updated to, like, current use, current times?
The grantee can convey whatever they received. This was a deed that granted a right that had existed in the prior deed
Passage.
to the new, yes, a right
You
of
want to change
passage.
it to parking, so,
Passage and parking are not compatible.
right, so that's what I'm asking, though. Could that be changed by an attorney, or somebody in the, the land courts, probate, whatever? Can that be changed?
Yeah,
To meet their
the neighbor
requirements.
could issue an easement or a deed
For
and
parking.
some legal instrument giving up their right to use that 10-foot
That 10
strip.
feet, so they could use it for parking.
Right.
Okay.
which means they would have to use the neighbor's property for passage.
Or vice versa.
Right.
If
Either
they're-
way,
either
it's
way.
something that, it's something that would have come up in a deed, if some title research had been done as a question that applies to this application, that's all. And we're only talking about those 2 parking spaces in the driveway. You know, you've delineated 3 other spaces, you've met, you know, that requirement. But I'm not certain that we should go forward.
I have a question. Just
Sure, Brett.
looking at it, I can tell, after you leave that parking area where it goes to towards the gazebo there, does that drop off in slope?
Yep.
Oh, okay, so you can't somehow extend gravel?
No, I actually sent
parking
you have pictures of that as well, because I think someone mentioned my snow removal, which were like 50 feet from the river, so I wasn't
Yeah.
quite sure why that was
It's
brought
about a
up.
5-foot drop with
But-
erosion rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't really
No.
just throw some gravel down and just park down there?
Randy was very fond of
you-
gazebos.
Yes.
You guys
He
get
was.
that? About the-
Yeah.
No. What kind
I
of
get-
attorney am I supposed to look for?
So,
A
I-
land attorney?
Mr. Trefethan, what sayest thou?
Well, I want to just address a couple other things, because the applicant brought it up. So, the city deems this a single-family home. And so therefore, for a single-family home, there are no parking requirements from a standpoint of how many units you gotta have, et cetera.
Yeah.
You don't even have to have a driveway to have a single-family home, particularly in 1889, when it was horse and buggy. We are aware that part of the building has been converted to a second unit. Whether it's officially a second unit at this point in time, I don't know, but they're asking to have 3 total units. So yes, parking is an integral part of this, but to go along with that, which I know you haven't got to, and I understand, is the 3-unit aspect.
Right.
You know, we had, most of the questions that you've asked, we had that discussion at the technical review committee, and we asked for the delineation of the parking spaces, and
And
we
they
got
got
them tonight
yeah.
on the pictures. So, but prior to tonight,
Waterfront's
we did
beautiful.
not have an answer of how many spaces there are and where they are, et cetera. And we share some of your same concerns about the width of the driveway in the winter, and it may work, but, you know,
But we might approve this, and these people would be dragged into Superior, could literally be dragged into Superior Court by the abutter, saying that the parking spaces infringe upon their right, their common right of passage. This is what I'm concerned about.
right, and
In all of these similar cases, you know, more than just the deed is usually required.
Right.
A title company can do an abstract, and a lawyer can give a title opinion. That protects you, and it protects, and it allows the board to consider what's actually before it. We would be asked to, if we went forward to approval, we'd be asked to approve 2 parking spaces in what the deed purports to be common land, or common passage.
I did have one question for you, though.
Sure.
Tim, sorry. Now, like you were saying at the beginning, the abutter, he is in the Dominican Republic. He just left this past weekend. He actually wanted to be here to talk. I didn't know if that could save a bunch of attorney fees and stuff.
Is he in favor?
Yeah,
of it?
I'm
Yeah,
not-
he's in
I didn't know
favor. He
how to
wanted to come
explain
down
what you
here
wanted.
and he wanted to talk about it and say he's all in favor of this and he's right alongside it. But
Yep.
if that doesn't satisfy you guys and we got to get the attorney and have them sign, make up agreements and
Yeah,
if that.
The thing is that these deeds, they grant rights in perpetuity, they go forever, and they run with the property. So if you buy a property, and the deed says that your neighbor has a right of passage over part of your property, you're subject to that, you can't undo that. and it looks like you're trying to place 2 parking spots in that 10-foot strip. That's what we're concerned
So
about.
you,
That's what,
it was 10 feet though, and those parking spots.
In 1889.
And now.
you don't understand. Think of your
Yeah.
driveway, think of the driveway, your part of it, where your property line runs, as a lane that you can't block. That's what I'm driving at. That's one possible interpretation of that. I'm not giving a legal opinion, I'm just saying this issue has come up before, and it's been a mess to fix after the fact. You're better off getting the title opinion or whatever you need and a real plan drawn up that delineates this, and we, you know, then the abutters can come in, and your abutter in the Dominican Republic can write to us. Heck, if it had been 6 months ago.
He'll be
Yeah,
back
oh,
in
he'll be
5
back
days.
in 5 days, yeah.
Yeah, he could have done Zoom, but we don't do Zoom anymore, because the city had to cancel its Zoom account or something silly.
So, and now I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but, so if this all falls through.
Well, you're
and we
on
can't-
YouTube
Should I
Live,
just
too.
allow my children to stay there and just skip all this
You can, yes.
technical crap?
The thing is that there's no law that requires you to turn this into a multifamily. It's a single-family home, and if you want to have 3
So
kitchens
if I ever
in it.
sold it, I
Well,
wouldn't, it would be much different.
But there is some rules on bedrooms and things like that.
Yeah.
Even in a single family, you can't just have a broom closet be a bedroom kind of thing. So there are rules that
Right.
they would still have to
And
follow in any single
But
family.
what I'm saying is that if she wanted to put a second kitchen in the back, or a private living room
Oh,
or
it's gonna-
something, they
no,
can't
it's
do
gonna-
that?
Single-family house has 1 kitchen.
Yep.
As soon as you add a second kitchen, you're a second unit of housing.
Is that, the kitchen rule, is that what it's called? I'd never heard of it before. I once had to, well, I'm not going there. All right,
Okay, so that's all you need from us is the easement, get an attorney and have them.
well, we still have a motion pending and it hasn't been decided, and I'm not sure.
Is it possible to table this without, for the acceptance? Could that be changed to tabling it?
Of course, any business of the board can be tabled, but it must be brought forward for acceptance next month.
You interested in changing it? Just asking.
Yeah, I mean, I'll withdraw my motion I'll withdraw my motion.
Well, or the motion can stand and we can vote it down and just
It doesn't
then do a
matter. I
motion to
mean,
table.
you know. I guess my only question would be, I understand that we're stuck on a piece of it, but we've also during this have discussed a lot of things with the project. If we deny the acceptance right now, we don't talk about anything else that they may have to do, which could kick it down the road a little further. So that's, if we deny the acceptance right now, we just walk away, we're done. We're going on to the next topic.
Right, but
If
we'll
we
revisit
accept
it,
it-
we'll revisit it next month.
That's, if we accept it, do we talk about those other things now? Don't approve it, but talk about the acceptance, or talk about the potential, so they can see if there's anything else going on that we're gonna, you know,
Can
this
we-
is only one topic.
We can accept it and then continue the public hearing until next month and repost it, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're suggesting, chief?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, what if we started talking about something else right now, and then we're just kicking the can down the road for them?
Right, so putting.
get all the cards on the
putting
table tonight.
parking issue aside.
Right.
Are there any other issues that would hinder this from moving forward?
So we save them maybe a potential
So they can
month.
address all issues at once and not one at a time.
I'm not withdrawing.
Okay.
How about percentage of green space, Dean? It looks pretty crowded there.
All right.
They're not adding any pavement or structure, so it is what it is.
But we're changing the use,
We are changing the use,
So-
yes.
it looks like they're pushing is it 60% green space?
Yeah, no, they're in the UC district. I think it's only
30,
20 or 30, yeah,
yeah.
So that would be safe then.
yeah.
And now all the 3 tenants, whether or not they have rights to the green spaces between the landlord and the tenant, so
If you look on the
they
other,
consider that common areas.
the map with the big circle, the right-of-way goes on both properties.
Right.
So if you were blocking that right away, the other lot 58 would not have access through the
That was
driveway.
my point.
Right.
Yeah, it said that the 10 feet on
right
the
down the
southern
center,
line
yeah.
of their property, so. All right, so there's a motion and there's a second. Is there any more discussion? This is to accept the application, and then we can, then we will what? Then we will have further questions raised, perhaps? All right. So what is the pleasure of the board? Do you want to have a vote? Are we ready? The motion is to accept the application. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, was there a late, did that become unanimous?
No.
No, Scott didn't, okay. All right, so we have now just accepted your application. And I think the board members have other questions for you about this before we proceed. Or do we go right to public hearing?
I mean, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
from a staff standpoint, our only other concern is the snow storage, and they are very close to the river. There is a 50-foot setback for snow storage. They may not be aware of that, but there is one. And the question was, where are you gonna put your snow?
They'll have to get a payloader to take it out, because there's no
Exactly, but
place on the site.
That's not been,
You knows that, right? You can't just push the snow up down to the riverfront, because there's a 50-foot
It's illegal,
setback.
yeah.
Snow's got dirty stuff in it, right, you know?
We've been there for a few years, and we snow blow our driveway anyways, and we blow it up, we put it, there's plenty more, the pictures might not show it, but off to the sides of the driveway.
Yep.
So we can start at the bottom, start blowing up, and then push everything to the side, and then when we get out by the road, we can put stuff out by our front
In the front
yards.
of your
Yeah.
yard. They're all
So,
the flower beds.
and I have to double check, but I'm not sure of the exact measurement, but I have a feeling we're over our driveway. I don't wanna speculate on it,
Backyard.
but it's gotta be close to over 50 feet from that water anyways, but we don't take a chance with it anyways.
Well, the deed itself said that from the street to the back of the parking area was like 57 feet.
Okay, is that, okay. So
But it
yeah.
doesn't say from that point to the river, but we can see from the photographs that you are
Two
at best
tiers there.
30.
I think
There's a double tier.
50 is like at the bottom
Right
of
to
the
the steps.
walkway.
The steps
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So
from
there
the
should be
thing.
about
So
another-
they still have some room.
Yeah, there should,
Yep.
I think it's close to around 66
Yeah.
plus feet, but. But no, we definitely know that concern.
Well, I think then I'm gonna call a public hearing to order on the application itself. And we'll hear from some abutters, and then we'll decide what we're gonna do, all right? So, the public hearing is now open at 7:55. Are there any abutters here? Any members of the public that wish to be heard regarding this application? It's 39 Messer Street. All right, come on up. You guys can take a seat for a minute while this gentleman comes up. Mr. Conda-Demitraki.
Good evening, Mark Conda-Demitraki, butter at 4345 Messer Street. I did send an email this morning about parking issues. I have no problem with them wanting to expand to 3 units, you know. I'm a firm believer that there's plenty of room in the city for the single-family homes to be converted to multifamily, and in every other urbanized area, you know, in the United States, where you have the utilities and the infrastructure that's already in place, it's always a better idea to expand your density. My only issue is the parking that's there and what's currently happening. So we've owned the property since about 1997, and we've never really had an issue with street parking, unfortunately, until the current owners purchased the property. Since then, there have been multiple vehicles that park right up against our driveway apron, right on the road verge, which is the interstitial space between the curbing and the sidewalk. We've addressed this multiple times with the property owner. I've spoken to them multiple times. We've sent letters, we sent certified letters that have not been accepted and have been returned. And the problem persists. So, you know, my concern as an abutter is that now we're going to expand the use. There is not adequate on-site parking that the zoning requires, and now we're going to have an even greater problem with parking blocking our tenants. Our tenants can't see as they pull out of the driveway, as they exit. It's creating a dangerous situation for us. So that's our only concern, is that we just obviously want to make sure that, you know, our tenants are safe and protected, and that there's not going to be any kind of detrimental impact to them, and that, you know, the parking rules are followed.
Mark, as you heard us discuss, it is lawful to park on the street there.
Correct, and if they
And your
did,
tenants would have the same problem
they
getting out
would
into
not.
traffic.
They would not, because the road verge is elevated. And when they park up on
Oh, I
that
see.
space, what happens is it blocks the view of the sight distance to the street.
You're talking about
So
the
it-
sublon.
I'm talking about the sublot.
He calls it the
correct.
verge, we call it the sublot.
Yeah, the sublot.
Tomatoes, tomatoes.
So
But-
the
but-
street is lower. The street is lower.
Right.
And if the vehicles were parked on the street, on the curb, which is where they should be parked, then there wouldn't be an issue.
Because anyone exiting their driveway could see down the
Could see
sidewalk
from
in
the
both
top of the
directions.
driveway,
Right.
down the street, have the proper sight distance, and there wouldn't be any issue.
So-
And then they wouldn't be pulling from the sublon across my driveway and crumbling the edge of the driveway, which
Would it help
again
if
is a whole nother
if
issue.
the city were to delineate parking spaces?
That would be great.
Yes, because
That would be
this isn't
fantastic.
just our parking. That's not just our tenants over there. That black car that's parked there lives in 35 Messer. They do not live in my house.
Yeah, but look,
And then all the other
your
renters,
your
you
kid
can't
your
choose.
kids are going in and out all the time.
It
Your
doesn't
truck
matter.
is parked there. I've asked. We've talked about this
Oh,
before.
all right, all
Uh,
right.
so-
Right,
And,
right,
you know,
right.
look, and it's not, you know, it's not for the planning board to address, right? And that's not a problem. You know, my plan is to have the property surveyed, have our property line delineated, and then work with Public Works to try and put some kind of, whether it's a shrub or some kind of, you know, slow-growing tree or something in that sublon area, to prevent people from coming up over that area, so.
Excuse me, Mark, looking at this map, what lot are you?
We're the northern side.
Right next door?
Correct.
Right there, okay. And yours is a single-family house?
No, it's a 6-unit. It's a 6-unit
Six
property.
units.
Which is obviously why we don't object to the expansion.
So, Mark, when I saw your email, I asked Kalina to forward it to Public Works and the police. And Wes Anderson, who is the Public Works Director, as you know, replied as follows: "The lot shares a driveway, 35 Messer Street. It does not share parking with 35 Messer Street. Public Works does not support the property owner's request to convert 39 Messer into a multifamily building, as there is insufficient parking on the lot to support additional vehicles." And that doesn't really address the concern of parking on the street.
No, not at all.
You've already heard tonight that they are required to have 5 parking spaces, and they have delineated 5. The only question is, 2 of them may or may not block a common egress and access point.
Correct. And
And it doesn't, you're right, we're not addressing the on-street parking. We think we could reply to Mr. Anderson and say, well, why don't you delineate some parking spaces on that side of Messer Street,
And-
so that the
yeah,
vehicles
delineating, I think,
legally park.
delineating parking spaces on the street would allow for a potential variance for this party too, to have a lesser amount of parking and to be able to have off-street or off-site parking as well. So that would be a solution,
I
you know,
think
to,
that,
to,
and the
to
other
multiple
issue
parties.
is that there is a sense when you're traveling on Messer Street, especially when everyone's parked along the side of the road, that Messer Street, it encroaches into the northbound lane. And I think maybe if they're gonna put delineated parking spaces, they probably have to move the center line too.
No.
No,
No?
there is enough room.
There's enough room.
The road is wide enough there
Right up to the
on the
track.
north side to have street street delineated parking until you
sidewalk
get
with a subline, yeah.
past our property, closer to the railroad tracks where the road begins to neck back down again. So,
Okay.
you know, there is plenty of space and there is plenty of room to do that. You know, obviously, that would need to be done by Public Works, which, you know, you don't have the purview to.
Well, we could certainly make it part of the condition of approval that the parking is only going to be allowed in the delineated spaces, whatever they may be. Well, we don't.
I don't know how, I don't know what that has to do with the applicant. I mean, the parking is this thing really for the city to deal with, the city council or Public Works. And people parking on sublawns causing that problem for this line of sight is something that I was gonna recommend to you to go to the city council with, because they've had a line, and the councilor from Ward 1 will back this up. They've had a line on their things to do or things to watch for maybe 5, 6, 7 years now.
I live at the north end of the city. I don't understand.
That actually says sublawns, because this has been a problem all around the city. So
yes.
I'm saying Wes Anderson is not the
enforced
guy, yeah, Wes
Quite
Anderson,
often,
right.
quite a few places, it's been
Right.
enforced.
They won't let you put campaign signs on the subline.
That's right. And Wes Anderson's not the guy, I think, to go to this. I think it needs to go to the city council.
Yeah, and I'm gonna approach Wes again
Yeah,
about
if
planting.
they do put the
putting a
white
planting
lines-
there so that it
If
would-
they do put the white lines out there, that doesn't mean that parking is strictly for the people in any of those homes. Somebody could go shopping on Church Street at the spa or downtown and go up and park their car there. And if you don't have a time limit on there, they could tie that spot up for a long time. And that's done quite often. I don't know whose vehicles they are. Sometimes I've seen trailers out there that he's
Well,
dropped.
From November 1st to April 1st, they can't park on the street
There's
anyway.
no
right?
overnight parking.
Right.
So what they've done in neighborhoods is they've put their entire car up on the sublawn.
I know, a little
So that-
further up.
I'd like to
that's
point
what
out to Mr. St. Clair
Here we
that there
go.
are two issues here. One is this one, and the other is
Thank you.
5 parking spaces on their property.
Yes, the on-street parking is not germane to the application that we just.
Does anybody have any questions for me?
No, thank you.
No, thank
Thank
you.
So you
Those
can't,
comments.
just slap a boulder in that corner?
Well, on the sublawn?
Yeah,
No,
just a stop.
no. I mean, I want it
It's
to
a
look nice.
temporary fix.
want
City
it to look-
property.
I want it to look nice, and it's city property, so.
What they did up on my street was they paved the sidewalk, the sub-lawn, and the street all together, so you don't have this problem.
Well, that creates,
I have grass.
that creates other problems,
Right.
because believe it or not, the sublawn does actually help prevent drainage and
Right.
erosion and, you know, other issues, and it has a significant
on the
amount of water retention. So, you know,
It looks like yours,
It
we
keeps
saw a
the
picture of it, it looks
keeps
really
the
muddy.
sidewalk
Yeah,
wider
it's-
in the winter because
it's
it's a
bad,
place for the snow to go to.
Because everybody parks.
Thank you, Mr. Conor Demitraki. Are there any other members of the public or abutters that would wish to be heard? Sensing none, I'll close the public hearing at 8:06. So, what would the staff recommend we do with this?
I would suggest you table, and we will work with the applicant to get the answers to the questions and concerns.
So here's an alternative that it just occurred to me. What if we made a condition of approval that they get a title opinion regarding whether it is lawful to use that 10-foot common passageway as a parking area? That would allow us, that would basically leave it in your discretion to determine whether that's been met. It would take more than just looking at their deed. You would have to look at the adjoining deed as well, especially since, you know, the original conveyances were back in the 19th century. This may have been carried over through several deeds, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like when you do a deed, you basically copy all the language that was in the previous deed. And so that literally means that you can check the title all the way back to the one that we talked about in 1889.
Why would it be changed? Could it be changed? Why would we think it would be changed?
Well, there are other instruments that get recorded at the registry other than just deeds. There are easements and there are, you know,
The easement is what we're looking for. If there's any easements with that deed?
I don't know if there's an easement. That's, my whole point is that a title opinion or something that we could point to. What I'm trying to do is, yes, Councilman Cheney.
Mr. Chairman, a conditional approval doesn't really do them a lot of good if they have to make all of these,
Right.
all of these searches and whatever. I suggest we table it, and give them time to do what they need. I don't think it's fair to Dean, I don't mind making his life miserable as a general rule, but I don't think it's fair to Dean to weigh these things without us looking at it as well.
Well, I share your view regarding Dean's misery, but I think you're right, yeah.
I'll make that motion, Mr.
So we have a motion to table this for a month to the October 4th date, I believe.
Second.
And a second by Scott. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Questions? Sensing none. All those in favor of tabling this application and holding another public hearing next month? All those opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if it was confusing. If it's any consolation, I was confused too. We are moving on to Artisan Court. PL 2022-0089 SP 26 Artisan Court. Proposal to construct a big building, 60 by 132 feet, that will be an accessory use for cold storage of marine equipment that gets pulled out and worked on in the winter. It's got heat out there. All right, and we need a motion to accept. Is this application complete and ready for acceptance?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Motion to accept.
Motion made by Scott. Is there a second? Second by Rich. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It carries unanimously. All right, so the application is properly before us. I recognize that face, that bearded face up there.
Howdy.
How are you?
Nick Schedule from Dubois and King.
Good to see you, Nick.
Representing the applicant, Miles Marine. The owner, Brad Miles, is also here if we have questions for him. This property is at the end of Artisan Court on the town line with Guilford. The existing use is marine repair.
I'm familiar with the business.
Yep. And then
Craig, your father?
Yes, sir.
Yep, I went to high school with him. I'm old.
So existing building, and then out back here they have existing storage area. It's a gravel area. Basically, you know, they are working on boats throughout the year and moving boats in and out of the shop. As they come in, they will, especially in the wintertime, they have to, you know, remove shrink wrap, do a diagnostic on the boat, figure out what it needs for parts, order parts, wait for those parts to come in, re-shrink wrap the boat, put it back outside so that they can keep their mechanics busy in the wintertime. The plan is to, in this gravel area here, to replace that with a building, cold storage, so that they can bring boats in and out of there mostly during the winter time while they're in between servicing.
They're not gonna use it to service boats? You say it's called cold storage.
Cold storage, so they'll have an electrical service from their existing building that would provide lighting.
But no heat.
no heat. They're not gonna work in that building.
Oh,
No
okay.
repair work in that building. Just basically to store their marine boats that are there for the wintertime.
So it's a boat storage building?
Well, it's really a mix between winter work and our equipment. Some of these trucks that we're buying now are $250,000 a piece. Really don't want them sitting out in one in the summer.
I've seen your trucks, yeah.
In the sun or in the snow in the winter if we don't have to. And then, yeah, the guys, it's getting harder and harder to get mechanics that you can keep year-round employed, especially in our business. So it's, in order to pay them the rate that we need to bring these boats in and out of our shop that's already existing now. Really don't have the funds to build another shop that size, so it's really, instead of wasting the shrink wrap, and if that's an environmental problem as well as all this plastic, is that instead of pulling it in, finding out what we need for parts and all that, re-shrink wrapping the boat, putting it back outside so the guys can start on something else, it gives us a place to, okay, well, we got
Gotcha.
these 20 boats that need to go inside, but they're coming into our shop to work on, but they might go back in there while we're waiting.
So the boats that will be in this, were either removed from the shrink wrap or we're never gonna be shrink wrapped?
Hopefully never going to be.
Right, at the end of the season, you're gonna, so you store them there, then you bring them one or two at a time
Correct.
into your heated, shop.
We've gone into like just other like refit projects and stuff like that where there's a bigger project where,
Okay.
you know, that's what we're really using the building for, is to just store the stuff before we work on it.
So talk to me about the drainage and all that, Nick.
So existing drainage, you know, it's a sloped area. The existing drainage slopes from kind of north to south. So this direction, there's an existing access easement and driveway that's comes off of Waterford Place as well. So right now, the water that collects on the gravel surface, it kind of comes across here, and then they've done their most recent improvements to this gravel road. They've installed a under drain, more or less. So there's a drainage pipe and stone that's allows any of the runoff to infiltrate here, and then it comes underneath the driveway here, and then runs along this swale. And then there's an existing culvert underneath the end of Waterford Place, and everything heads towards Lily Pond.
This is right behind Pepe Herman, right? Or is that on the?
It is, yep.
Yeah.
And then this is the property, was here before you for storage units.
Yep.
So this was, is in development now. You know, that was a significant development with new pavement, new impervious drainage system, and storage building.
Yep.
Yeah, storage units.
So the drainage
So this
is,
for the new
drainage
building?
is towards the road.
Yep, for the new building, more or less, we're keeping it within the existing gravel area. There's a small slope between the existing kind of parking area and the gravel that's down here. That slope will get taken up by one of the walls of the building, so it'll be a higher, like knee wall type foundation on that side.
The entrance on the gable end?
Yep.
Okay.
So two overhead doors, I think, on that end.
That's a big building, yeah. 60 wide,
And
65.
There'll be a driveway or something connecting the existing structure to this new
so
storage
there's
building?
this is all existing gravel
Oh, it's gravel?
driveway area. It's,
Uh-huh.
you know, currently used.
Already
you know,
gravelled out.
Yeah.
It's basically been used for outdoor shrink wrap boat storage, and now you're saying it's a pain in the butt to unwrap them, bring them into the shop, re-wrap them, put them out, and an added expense for your customers, and an environmental problem. I think I get the concept.
So as far as, you know, the new impervious area for the building, we're proposing a stone drip edge along the roof line.
Yep.
So we'll infiltrate as much of that water as we can. There'll be a footing drain, and that footing drain would discharge into this swale that's along the edge of into the stone that's there, so.
All right. And just to orient myself, orient the site, to the northwest, that's wetland going that way, right, isn't it? Don't we get into the Lily Pond?
This is wetland here, yep. So you can see the wetland hatching.
Oh, okay.
So this is wetland here. And then Lily Pond is probably somewhere down here.
There's kind of a ridge.
This is a PSNH easement that comes.
Yeah, there's kind of a ridge actually between there and White Oaks Road going up, isn't there?
quite a ridge.
Like highland, yeah.
There's even quite a ridge between our property and the guy doing the.
Yeah.
below.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Yes, chief.
At technical review, you changed the size of the building, but we're not now?
This guy?
Is that,
we got
this is
rid
still
of-
showing, this is still showing the over 8,000, so is that,
Correct. So the previous had a lean-to.
right, this still shows the lean-to, but that,
This is the updated plan.
Okay,
Took
okay.
the lean-to off of it. So the application should not include a lean-to.
okay.
Any other?
Yes, it is
What's
under,
that?
under 8,000 square feet.
Well, on the one I have, it still shows the 8,000 plus square feet, but take the lean-to away, it doesn't. So,
I have a question for you, Chief, after. on that.
yep, yep.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right, well, let's open the public hearing then. At 8:18 p.m. Are there any abutters or members of the public present? Don't see any. All right, we'll close the public hearing at 8:19 and hear from the staff.
The proposal meets all zoning requirements and the site plan regulations. Staff recommends the board approve the application. I do want to remind you about the new requirement under state law, including in your motion a finding of fact. I've given you a few sentences to seed that motion. You may add any words that you like or delete any words that you like. But you need to make a finding of fact in addition to your approval. And we are contemplating a 2-year completion for this project.
And the finding of fact could be as simple as, this is an improvement to the property that does not significantly, does have no adverse effect on the abutters, or something to that effect, right? Right?
Whatever you want to say.
They're basically gonna build a concrete pad on a gravel parking area, and they've made arrangements for drainage, so if the maker of the motion could include some sort of statement as to what the board found to be fact, then we will be in compliance. If not, we can amend the motion, I suppose, to include it.
I'd like to make a motion.
Sure.
I'd like to move that we accept application PL.
Approve. We've already accepted it.
We have already accepted.
Yes,
So
we
this
have.
is for approval.
This is for approval. This is the big banana right now.
I move that we approve application PL 2022-0088SP as submitted. The application meets all of the site plan regulations. It's in a zoning district that's intended for this type of use. Will have no adverse effects on the abutters and does allow this existing business to expand their operation.
Is there a second to Mr.
Is that
McWilliams'
sufficient
motion?
for your purpose? Okay.
Yep.
I'll second verbatim.
I think pretty much,
He wrote it.
I think pretty much it's just a sentence or two that summarizes
Okay.
the reason we voted in the way we did, or at least the maker of the motion. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion regarding this application? Sensing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Go forth and sin no more. Yeah, right. You didn't start with bless me, Father. This is the problem, Nick. Take care, thank you.
I have a question on the second kitchen thing, though, from the people before.
Yes.
Does that apply to an outdoor kitchen?
No,
No.
Okay,
No.
that was a fair question.
I would say no.
You have to serve the homeless.
Better not be, because you should see my deck right now.
Right, outdoor kitchens are becoming a thing.
I eat, you know, weather permitting, I eat dinner out there every night, cook it and eat it out there. All right, so we kind of cleared our docket. We actually have time to do reports and stuff. Is there any new business? I don't see any old business on the agenda. Yes, Charlie?
I have a question, or maybe it should be on other business.
Let me take a look.
Should I wait? I mean, it's old, it's stuff we've talked about before.
Well, old business would be things we carried over.
Okay, so I'll wait for other business.
Okay. Planning Department report. You've lost Rob.
We are actively recruiting a replacement for the assistant planner, yes.
What is the minimum requirement for that, as far as?
Ideally, we would like someone with some experience in planning or zoning, or some related field. But we are willing to, just as we did with Rob, we are willing to train the right candidate.
Okay. So when Rob came in, was he a professional planner?
He was not.
Okay. And is it your intention to hire one to replace him?
Our intention is to hire a person the best possible candidate that
will work for the money available.
Wants to work for the city. You know, as everyone knows, it's a very tough hiring environment, and when you have a specialized vocation such as this, it becomes more difficult. Where in the past, say 2-3 years ago, we would have had several people apply. I can tell you the last time we had an opening, we had like 3. That was for conservation. So, you know, it's a very different environment now, and all we can hope for is it's not quantity we're looking for in terms of applications, but, you know, we need the right candidate.
Okay. So, all right. Any other questions? Any questions for him about the planning department? Anything else cooking that we should know about? You always have these little cryptic messages about, well, there's something in the works for this property, but
Yeah,
I really can't say right now.
There's all that. The deadline for people to submit proposals for the state school property was August 19th. I'm not sure how many total applications they received, but there are 4 applications that are under consideration at this moment. So I don't know if there was a culling, so to speak, or whether all we received was 4. I don't know the answer to that.
Are these 4 mutually exclusive plans, or?
They are 4 completely different development groups that want to.
For the whole site?
For the whole site, yes, sir.
Okay, so there's not like 4 that one of them wants to only work on one part and one only wants to work on the other?
At this moment, that's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Now, at any point in time, I suppose, if people wanted to team up and do some type of a joint venture, I'm sure that could happen.
Where does the public get to weigh in on all this?
As of right now, I would say there is no, I'm not aware of any public opportunity.
Troubles me greatly.
You should call the governor then.
Yeah.
If I
He's
can
the guy.
interrupt, the one place that the public would have an input is at the governor and council meeting. Should a decision be brought to the governor and council, you have a right every
Oh, no,
citizen.
Charlie told me to call the governor, I'll just call the governor.
Oh, same difference.
I've left voicemails before.
Make sure you borrow Charlie's phone.
Well,
knows
I
my
don't think
number.
it's a bad idea to talk to our counselor if you have some concerns or some interest. I really do think it has an impact if your counselor starts
That's
to
Joe
raise-
Kenny, is it?
Yes, Kenny.
Kenny.
Who, at least in my experience, has been receptive to hearing from us and expressing our views. He has on occasion slowed things down in the.
Right.
So,
Well, I think, my message would be, hi, I'm a member of the planning board in Laconia, and we'd sure like to know what you guys are looking at, and get as much advance notice as possible. And by the way, we have like this thing called a master plan, and
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think there's a couple of things here. One, I think the state has come to recognize they need to deal with the city of Laconia. Is that a fair statement? Yes. I think they understand that we hold the key to that property as it relates to zoning.
you see, but here's what I'm concerned about. If I'm not mistaken, if the state is the developer, we have no power at all.
But the state isn't a developer.
Well, we don't know that for
Yes, you
sure,
do.
do we?
Yes, you do. That's the proposal the governor made, was to sell it to a private company,
So,
corporation.
in theory then, unless there's some prior easements or conservation lands set aside within that, then the whole property will be subject to regulatory review.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think it's also safe, and I don't ask him to nod approval, but I think it's also safe to say that that people interested in that land have probably talked to our planning department, asking questions about zoning and other things. So, we are gonna have the city of Laconia is gonna have some sway in what goes on up there. I couldn't agree with you more about public input, but that's not the habit of the state when it comes to things like this.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it doesn't matter which party
But
you're
it makes a
talking
joke of the right-to-know law when they do stuff like this. You know what I'm saying?
about. They can point, I'm sorry to interrupt, they can point to portions of the right-to-know law where
I know.
it says except for.
It's an exemption, yeah.
And the buying or selling of property is one of the absolute specific exemptions to the right-to-know law.
I would never try to second-guess the governor's legal counsel, that's for sure.
Well, after 24 years
Chief,
of working.
when do you become city manager?
October 3rd.
Okay. I want to say, first of all, if that means that you will no longer be with us on the planning board, I'm going to miss you.
That is correct.
Can't jump ship
He
quick
can't
enough.
wait to get out of here. Don't let him
Jump
keep.
ship quick enough. Jeez.
And,
Already out the door.
I do hope our new manager appoints a fire chief to replace the present member from.
well, yeah, you would have an interest in that, I think, and I know we all do.
It's been good to be here as, I try to have my planning board hat on while I'm here, but I certainly,
Well, you
still
do
the fire
your,
chief.
It's good for all the rest of us.
And so,
So the looming question is, if you're city manager the 3rd, is there gonna be a fire chief sitting here on the 4th for the planning board meeting?
we're in that process now. I do not know when the final approval, final naming of somebody and start date would be.
well, that seat doesn't have to be held by the fire chief.
No.
You're in the city manager's appointee seat, and you could appoint anybody you want.
But we could also offer that we would hope the former fire chief, now city manager, would sit in until such time as we could
Oh,
find.
God, here we go. No, because I would bet that one of his first official acts would be to designate somebody as acting
And
chief.
that's fine. I personally think the fire department needs to be represented here. Period.
I would agree.
Well, I do too.
For a lot of reasons.
You help us in innumerable times, like you did tonight.
Yep.
You talked about, you said that's not a problem, that's not an issue.
Yep.
So,
He's
Keep
got,
that into consideration.
he's got deputies and
Anyway.
captains, whatever.
Guy Newberry coming back for a short stint?
No.
congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, I don't even know who's on the Lakes Region Planning Commission.
Me.
You are. Would you care to make a report?
Well, can I do one as a little aside? I've been working at the Colonial, and I thought I would hear lots of complaints about parking, and I have not. I hear tons of complaints, there's no place to eat. So this past Saturday night, I had a show. I ended up going to the local. They said every time the Colonial has a show, they are swamped. They have over 120 reservations.
Yeah.
It's they are able
Same
to
with
do
Hector's.
2 shifts.
I thought the Colonial was gonna have a restaurant or at least food.
I know there's like a ice
Concession.
cream thing opening up, but with that said though, it convinced me to go to
Stacy's
at the
Cafe?
end of the month. It's called Plan New Hampshire is hosting it. It's called Retail Remade: New Life for Downtown and Commercial Districts.
Oh, boy.
And it's an all-day workshop, and I'm hoping to bring back lots of info, but if they ask for issues, I'll say, how can you get small businesses to, how can we get them to jump in? Because it's so difficult to run
What's
a
it
small
called?
business. It's Plan New Hampshire Fall Conference, Retail Remade.
Plan New Hampshire, that's the sponsoring organization?
Yes.
Okay.
It's gonna be in Concord on Thursday, September 29th.
Hey, during nice weather, can't they do like food trucks in the city hall parking lot?
That would be awesome.
Winnie wagon and stuff?
I mean, people literally, when they come in and when they leave, that's all they ask me. Where can we get something to eat and
Well,
drink?
you know, depending on what time they're leaving, because there are a lot of restaurants around in not that far an area. You know, you've got Brickfront, you've got 405, you've got Hector's, you got
It
this
depends on the night of the week. It depends on the
night,
season.
It depends on the night and the time, absolutely. And that'll be the situation no matter, if you get more
Is
restaurants.
that 929, did you say?
A lot of restaurants don't have the staff or don't want us to open at 11
It's a
o'clock.
tough business to get into.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's a miserable.
It is, yeah. Like, for example, we had one show one night that got out and everybody had closed. They were all hoping to go next door to have a drink, and I don't blame her. She had closed because she would have had to wait for the show to
Charlie?
end and then.
Charlie, you gotta convert the Antique Center into a bar and grill.
I have a BYOB there every New Year's Day. Which is totally legal.
New Year's Day?
I do.
We'll be
Yeah.
there.
So,
Open the soda
that's a
fountain.
good issue. That goes towards the Master Plan Steering Committee stuff, because I think, we need to be more hands-on when it comes to targeting specific sections of the economy and encouraging them to relocate. Well, I think we've done a pretty fair job of attracting the so-called well-heeled investors that want to do multi-use big projects, but it's the little ones that make or break it downtown. Remember what happened to downtown after urban renewal, I'm encouraged when I see new signs and new businesses opening in the downtown area. We need to continue to encourage that.
But I think it goes to Stacy's point too, though, is that the Colonial Theater is at or near capacity at almost every show. We get the list of where they stand numbers-wise. So, it's the council putting the money into it, saying if you build it, they will come, right? But they're showing they'll come. So now the next steps and the next step. So it's a building block and it's working, so.
I went and saw Craig Ferguson Saturday night. Oh my God, what a great show. Absolutely
He has
Not a bad
gotten
seat in
old.
the house.
We've all gotten old watching him.
Whoa.
But I binge watched his, with the exception, of
Thank
course. Members of the city council there grant the eternal life, so don't worry about that. You didn't read that in the fine print. No, I think it's it's just wonderful. I got to bring a couple of people with me that had never been in the Colonial since the renovation. One guy had never been in it at all, and we had front row balcony seats. and it was just amazing. The sound was great, you know, but there was no place to eat, so we had to go back to my house and we had steaks. Okay, so,
You could open up a shop there.
I could indeed, but I would be violating the law.
Not as long as it's an outdoor kitchen.
Oh, it's outdoors. I tell you, it is. And it's funny because I used to keep the brush all cut down low, and then, you know, with the neighbor coming and talk about beep backup alarms, you know, it starts at 6:30 in the morning and it ends at 4 every day, constant. But the letting the brush go has actually been a blessing because it keeps the noise and the dust down, and I can sit on my deck, and if I'm facing Park Street or the church, it's as if they don't exist at night because you can't even hear them. Because it'll be different once that building's being occupied. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be at least one restaurant in there from my conversations with them. In fact, if you look at the building that they built on Railroad Avenue, it's pretty much the same footprint as the C.J. Avery's was. And they have the same parking profile, meaning they could have head-in parking in front, and then they have a parking area to the north. So, you know, Fratello's may have some competition come next summer. But where are they completion-wise? Are they looking at spring?
I don't have a timetable at this time.
Because they're still, I mean, they're still finishing the siding. They'll have that done by winter, I think. But they're also installing all kinds of interior stuff, and it's all steel studs too. So, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, allergies this time of year. Conservation Commission, Stacy.
I did, I just looked at my notes, and there really isn't, they've had a quiet time.
Awesome. City Council. Really? You guys, what do you do?
Massive pay raises to everybody below the city manager.
Huh?
Other than that.
Seems fair. Yeah, but you gotta put your name on it so they love you for it. That's what you
Yeah,
Well, he'll sign the paycheck.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
maybe
That's his idea.
That's it, that's about it, yeah.
No, I'm not aware of, I don't.
Okay.
You can move
How
on.
about the HDC?
We're still waiting for somebody on the city council to approve the, was it the bylaws, Dean?
And the ordinance.
Yeah. So we're still waiting on that.
What's the holdup?
You'd have to go to the city council, very busy.
What
Well,
are we talking
they're
about?
very busy, they had no
Historical
report.
District report.
No report.
We're ignoring Mr. St. Clair and the historical.
You know how incredibly difficult that is,
Put that-
Bruce?
Make sure that's
Yes,
on.
I For about
That's
3
why they're so
centuries.
busy.
Let's make sure that's recorded.
3 centuries, oh, jeez. Boy, we
Anyway,
need
so
to
that's,
talk.
there was no meeting, we really, there's not a lot we can do until that comes to.
Are we
Okay.
talking about the boundaries of the?
Well, it was that in,
The
not
district and the
boundaries,
ordinance
Not
itself.
the boundaries, it's the writing inside.
Oh, the height and stuff?
Just the
No.
ordinance in general.
Has to be an ordinance, Charlie, for an overlay district to be created, right? That's the ordinance that the city council is apparently
Because there
given
was
to
some
some
questions
committee that
about-
doesn't meet.
There were questions inside, like money and things like that.
Money.
Yeah, it's
Well,
correct.
there were also questions about.
So we're waiting for that, that's all, we don't have to rehash it.
No,
That-
but
We've gone over it, made a lot of changes.
we've had more than a few people come in and say, no, wait a minute. You know, I don't want you to tell me
No,
what my windows.
that's not what we're talking about. Dean, would you please step in, because you've been there right along it. We have gone through this process
No.
and made all these.
Motion to adjourn?
I wanna get out of here.
No,
No, there's a great webinar that talked about the difference between heritage commissions and historic commissions.
okay, thank you.
Guys need to watch that.
Again, we have gone through this line by line and made the changes that we think the council will approve. That's what we're waiting on.
In all sincerity, I haven't heard a word of this.
And I look to our go-between.
I'm not saying they haven't, I'm just saying,
Look, I'll give you a card.
So that's the
You-
answer to
You
that.
guys can go out to lunch on me, okay? And you can get this all
It's
hashed
not-
out
it's
and
not-
report
wait,
back
this is-
next week.
This is, listen,
Next
this
month.
is nothing to be made sport of. This is, we put a lot of work into this, several
I'm
meetings.
not making sport
So all
of
we're
it.
waiting for now is for the council to respond to that.
You
I
said
think
that
they need to
3
watch it.
times.
Because it will ease a lot of concerns.
I don't know anything about that. I'm just talking about the work we've done on that. So I'm
You
ready
guys
for
need
other
to
business,
watch it.
Mr. Chair.
Other business, Mr. St. Clair.
Okay,
Again,
let's all go now and,
again, I would like, I just wanna keep pushing about, and maybe it's been talked about in the master plan. Stacy might know more about this than I do, about the height. The height limitations, where I'd like to know if that's still being talked about, if we're gonna hear about that.
We're gonna we have scheduled a master plan steering committee for.
The 29th.
29th,
Yep.
and that will be on the
I
agenda.
was gonna say that.
And that's gonna be open,
It's gonna be a long
anybody
day.
can go to that, correct?
Oh, anybody can go to it,
Is that
absolutely.
gonna be held here?
Yes,
So, and the
What
membership of that,
6:30,
is the membership of that committee the same?
as it has been.
Henry, is, because he's
Yeah.
still on it and all that?
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question. Did Sarah Jenna not seek reappointment,
She,
or did she resign?
she resigned.
Oh, okay. When? I just noticed
June.
she wasn't.
June.
June. Okay. So we have a vacancy for an alternate. 2 of them?
We have a vacancy for a full-time, and then we have a couple of, and then we will have.
2 alternates.
Opening for 2 alternates, yes.
All right.
I have applied to be elevated to a permanent position. I interviewed with the,
Hey, let me adjust your chair. We'll elevate you right now.
I did interview with the committee, the appointments committee, I guess it's called now. And that was back some weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything.
Kalina, do you have a paper towel or something? I spilled my water.
I haven't heard anything from that committee since, so.
That's a good use for
We'll
that
hear from the
stuff.
city council.
Look at that.
The appointments committee.
That'll go at
Pardon me?
a council meeting.
They'll have to go to a council.
So
Right,
from-
Nancy said
You're
their
committed to
committee's
the
still,
meeting, so
I bet it's with the
it has to go.
heritage.
That's why you
Historic.
The manager.
the committee is still considering all their options or whatever, and.
Well, you can put me down as a reference,
But
Scott.
there probably still would make an alternate opening.
Okay.
you
Are
know-
are you okay? Are you done with your other business?
I am, thank you.
You have anybody else have any other business? All right, then, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Yes.
Well, if we don't have it seated,